Hello, children. Today, let us learn the lesson A Visit to Cambridge from the text Honeydew. This lesson is an excerpt, which means a short extract, from a travelogue highlighting exchange of views between two extraordinary persons. And the two persons are Stephen Hawking and Firdaus Kanga. They shared views on what it means to be differently abled. Stephen Hawking was one of the greatest scientists, born on 8th January 1942. He was a British scientist, professor, and author. He was one of the world's leading theoretical physicists. He has written many science books. He was a professor of mathematics at the University of Cambridge, a position that Isaac Newton once had. He had a motor neuron disease, and because of that, he could not move or talk very well. The illness worsened over the years, and he was almost completely paralyzed. He used a wheelchair to move and a computer to talk for him. His first book, A Brief History of Time, sold over 10 million copies. He died on 14th March 2018. Now let's get to know about Firdaus Kanga. Firdaus Kanga was born in 1960. He was born with a condition known as brittle bone disease, a condition where the bones tended to break easily. He is a writer and journalist. He has written a novel, Trying to Grow, and a travel book, Heaven on Wheels. Now it's time to understand the lesson. The lesson begins with Firdaus saying that earlier England was important to him only because of Cambridge. But after his meeting with Stephen Hawking, the meaning and relevance of England in his life changed completely. The author mentions that he happened to be on a walking tour through Cambridge when his guide spoke about Stephen Hawking. This reminded him of the most brilliant and completely paralyzed astrophysicist Stephen Hawking. Once the walking tour came to an end, the author hurried to the nearest phone booth and called Stephen Hawking's residence. His assistant answered the call. The author expressed his desire to meet Stephen Hawking, and the assistant gave him a 30-minute time slot from 3:30 to 4 p.m. Firdaus then confesses that he suddenly felt weak. He relates how one is constantly told to be brave, and growing up differently abled was not easy. He says that the one thing that makes a disabled feel strong is when they see someone like them achieving something huge. The next afternoon, Firdaus met Stephen Hawking. Hawking told Firdaus that he hadn't been brave and he had no choice. But the writer felt that living creatively with the reality of his disintegrating body was a choice for him. Firdaus strongly felt that Hawking could have easily sulked and surrendered to life. Rather, he chose to accomplish new heights despite being disabled. Firdaus wanted to tell him this, but he stopped himself because he could understand the difficulty Stephen Hawking went through to respond to him. He responded by tapping at the little switch in his hand, trying to find the words on his computer. The thoughts in his active mind came out as emotionless and stiff as a corpse. The author then says that most people think that people with different abilities are constantly sad and miserable. But he does not agree to it. After a few minutes, Hawking responded and said that he found it amusing when people tend to be kind or helpful because he was differently abled. The conversation between the two men continued, and then Hawking smiled his one-way smile, and the author felt that he was looking at one of the most beautiful men in the world. The author says that the first glance of Stephen Hawking is absolutely shocking because he is like a still photograph. He describes Hawking's personality as his inner beauty or glow that's so beautiful and vibrant. The outer physical structure is nothing but just an accessory. The author asked Hawking what, according to him, was the best thing about being differently abled, to which Hawking replied that he did not find anything good about it. The author then expressed his thoughts and said that it helped one discover that there is so much of kindness in the world. Though Stephen agreed to what the author said, he could not tell how enthusiastically he agreed with him due to his voice synthesizer. When the author compared his disability with that of Hawking, he felt a huge relief because his movements were not as restricted as Stephen Hawking's. The author confessed to him how he had inspired him and many others too. When the author asked Stephen if he would like to give a piece of advice to other differently abled people which would help them make life easier for them, Stephen Hawking replied that they should focus only on their strengths and what they are good at. According to Stephen Hawking, things like Olympics for the differently abled is a waste of time. The author got the gist of what Stephen meant because he had spent years learning to play a Spanish guitar, which was larger than his own size, and how he unstringed it one night very happily. The 30 minutes came to an end. It was time for the author to leave, but Stephen Hawking offered the author some tea and told him that he would show him his garden. Though the garden was as big as a park, Stephen showed him every inch and corner of it on his motorized wheelchair. They couldn't converse a lot during this time, as the letters on his screen disappeared in the glare of the sun. An hour passed, and it was time for the author to say goodbye. The author concludes by mentioning how, by glancing at Stephen, it was like looking at his bravest self, the one he was moving towards, and the one he had believed in for so many years. He was aware that his journey, at least for the time being, was over. Here are the meanings of some difficult words. Thank you for watching this video. Like, share, subscribe, and comment for suggestions.